Hello and welcome to the Exam Hall. This is the podcast where every episode I sit down with a guest and we answer questions from what is known as the hardest exam in the world, the All Souls College Oxford Fellowship Exam. My name is Cherry and I am your host. I am an ex-education professional, soon to be uni student, and I am currently enjoying a lovely glass of San Pellegrino. It's not in a glass, it's in a can. I don't know why I said that. If you are a returning listener, thank you for returning. Welcome back. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, number one, I'm very glad you have chosen us for all your podcasting needs today. And let me clue you in on what's going on here. All Souls College Oxford is one of the most prestigious and exclusive academic institutions in the world. Applicants must sit 4 3-hour papers, 2 specialist papers and 2 general papers, which is where we will be drawing our questions from. If you are lucky enough to be one of 2 appointed fellows, you are given funding for a 7-year period to fund any research project of your choice. To be eligible to apply, you must already hold a degree from Oxford or be currently studying there at postgraduate level. However, here at the exam hall, we have no eligibility criteria. Everybody is welcome. Everybody is equal. So, let me welcome my very gorgeous and very little lad-esque guest for today's episode, Maria Telnikoff. How you doing, Maria?
I'm good. I am channeling little lad energy. It's very berries and cream, berries and cream. I'm a little lad who loves berries and cream.
For anyone who doesn't know that Starburst commercial, that's a very confusing reference point. But let me explain it to you, because jokes are always funnier when you explain them.
No, for sure.
Maria is currently dressed in a waistcoat and shorts that resemble sort of 18th century shorts you might put on a little boy. And we're referencing a Starburst commercial where a man with a bob says, berries and cream, berries and cream. I'm a little lad who likes berries and cream.
Well, I actually got majorly rizzed on today by a probably 90-year-old man, which means I'm doing something right. He said, nice smile, and honestly, in a very charming way. But I think it's just
Did you get his number?
I think it's just because I look like a little boy. Honestly.
Oh no.
No.
The implications there are horrifying. So let's move on.
Let's move swiftly on.
Maria, welcome to the exam hall.
Thank you so much for having me.
May I ask, what qualifications do you have to be here today? And we use qualifications in a very liberal sense. Those qualifications could be being alive for X number of years, or they could be qualifications in traditional sense, such as being a lawyer at the top lawyer firm in London. Those were words in the right order that to make me sound very smart. Yes, they are.
What qualifications do I have? I mean, I have just bags of clout. Firstly, I like to think that things happen in my life due to my insane clout levels.
Okay.
But in terms of formal qualifications, I finished school when I was 18, like a lot of kids, but not all kids do. And I'm actually a certified wanker because I went to the University of Cambridge and studied classics there. But before I did that, I'd studied for a year in America.
Did you?
It was, honestly, I would not recommend it to anyone. I think California is a satanic place.
You were in California?
I was in California.
I learned something new about you.
I honestly
don't
like to talk that much about it because it was fine. I think people hear that and think it must have been amazing, but it really wasn't. And it honestly it made me more anti-America than I ever was before. But yeah, I finished the University of Cambridge. Big up. Big brain on this one. Look at her. She's got such a fit brain. But yeah, so I guess certified wanker from the University of Cambridge, but also I guess, student of life, because I think we're always learning, or at least we should be.
Well, Maria, welcome to the podcast. I am very glad to have a fellow wanker here today. Today's question, for the second time in a row, comes from the General Paper 2 from 2005, and it is, why does truthfulness matter? Question mark.
Big question. Already regretting choosing that one.
Why did you choose it? Let's start there.
I think just because as a poet and a philosopher in my everyday life, I think that I interrogate a lot what words mean, and I'm sure of one thing, as Socrates would say, is that I know nothing. And I actually know nothing. I know people like to say that, and what with my classical education, you'd think I know a lot of things, but I really don't. And I think a lot of people say, no, you're just being hard on yourself, but I feel like I don't know a single thing. And maybe it's just because I'm in my 20s, and maybe that's just the classic, oh, you feel like you're learning less and less, or you're knowing less and less about yourself. But I just think it's important to like interrogate why things exist.
Definitely.
Also, I'm a lying scumbag.
I guess the way to start tackling this question, how are we defining truthfulness?
Yeah.
And how are we measuring what matters? Like, how do we measure the importance of something? Yeah,
so I think there's a difference between truth or truthfulness and honesty. Okay. Because I think that you can be honest, or at least think you're honest, but that might not be the truth. Like when a kid is lying and the mother's like, tell the truth, Timmy, you little fuck. Wait, are we allowed to swear?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
F-U-C-K. When a parent tells off a child for lying and is like, tell me the truth. Did you eat that Lego? I don't know what kids do these days. Mm-hmm. Did you eat that iPad? Did you eat my iPad?
Meanwhile, like broken bits of glass and like wires and the motherboard like coming out my mouth. No, I didn't need it.
Anyway, but when Timmy eats that iPad, because he's a weirdo cyborg, and the parent asks them to be truthful, I think what they're asking them is to be honest and to admit to what they've done. But I think that you can admit to what you think you've done or what you think you know you've done, but it might not be the truth with a capital T, because so much of our experience of our lives is subjective.
Yeah, truth is a very subjective thing, isn't it?
And I think that's actually why I chose the question, because I'm really interested in, especially when people talk about a relationship, I think that both people's version of events are valid, unless someone's like an actual gaslighter and is like purposefully manipulating you. Let's put that aside. But I just think that both people are right and honest, but who has the ultimate truth, if there is one, we'll never know. And I think even if you could have a recording of everything you did in your life and watch it, so you could go back. Imagine you're having an argument with someone and then you're like, wait, let me go.
Tell me when. When did I say that? Yeah. When did I say that? When did I ever do that?
And then I'm like, well, let's scroll back to season 29.
I often think about this because, like, I doubt my reality so often.
Same. I'm such a bad memory as well. So I'm honestly, when people tell me that I've done something, I'm like, okay, if you say so, which is probably a dangerous thing because it'll have me like admitting to murder one day and be like, oh, I guess.
I definitely think you could 110% convince me that I killed JFK. I am Lee Harvey Oswald. Like, I suppose we're touching on a reason here why truth matters, because it's like, I mean, it's the world around you, I suppose, and if you don't, it's truth power in a way. If you can use truth to control people, or the lack of truth to control people,
true.
Is truth power?
Whoa. Or is truth just a word that we use so we can say so true, bestie, and it actually doesn't hold any more significance than that? It is purely a word that was invented by Gen Zers in order to validate each other.
Truth didn't exist before the late 90s. Truth came into existence with Gen Z.
That was a pre-truth world.
The ultimate generation.
BC. BT broadband. Just free associating now. But I think what you were saying, I think truth and power is really a huge thing, because people will use, for instance, politicians will use statistics and they will use truth, quote unquote, in order to convince you of something.
But is that really the truth? Because they're bending those statistics.
I don't fucking believe most statistics, because for instance, do you know that a study that apparently your brain stops developing after you're 25, or like you stop growing after you're 25? Everyone uses that. That was literally the only reason that people think that is because in that study they didn't have anyone over 25, so they just went, well, we don't actually have any data for that, so from our graph it just stops, because they didn't have any over 25-year-olds. I mean, I saw this on Twitter, so who knows if that was true anyway. But I believe everything I read on Twitter. I joke.
The T in Twitter stands for truth.
Yeah, and it's got 3 T's.
I mean, truth when it comes to politics is a big talking point, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I know zero about politics. We've established that I know nothing, but I also, I used to care a lot about politics, maybe circa 2016. I genuinely thought I might pursue a career in politics.
Really?
Because I loved the debate. I was
arguing.
I was into the arguing, but now looking back on it, I just like to perform. I just wanted to take up stage space.
I just want to dance at the ballet.
I just want to dance on the ballet. That was a terrible northern accent. I'm so sorry. By the way, just to clear things up, despite maybe people listening to this and being like, that bitch is from Surrey, from Leicester, guys. I just want to make that known. I'm from the Midlands. So all you haters who are going to hear my voice and be like, oh, Surrey, born and bred. I don't know why I'm picking Surrey specifically, but I just want to make it known that I'm from Leicester and I love Leicester. And I think that the Midlands is at once the armpit of England and also its crown jewel.
You can't see this, but Maria subconsciously started raising their fist. You started raising your fist as you said power.
That was actually totally subconscious.
You were genuine. I was watching it and I was like, is this a bit? Is this a bit? Let's go back on track and talk about truth. So I feel like this idea that truth is subjective, and talking about like politics and truth, you could veer off in 2 directions. You could say truth does matter, because if we let people twist the truth, like politicians or gaslighting assholes, then they can manipulate and do wrong and negatively impact the world. So truth is something that can be used to empower and positively impact people. Yeah. But then you could also go like the other way with it and go, well, truth doesn't matter because it's so easily twistable.
Yeah, and we don't really know what it is. And I also think that associating truth with goodness is not necessarily helpful.
It's quite a fairy tale.
I think it is a fairy tale, and I think it's also, once again, just used by people to manipulate others or oppress others. And we don't really know if finding out the truth will lead to good things. Okay, we don't even know if truth exists, but if it did, would we want to know it?
Oh,
like, I'm just thinking of people who find out that, you know, their partner is a lying scumbag and that brings so much harm. I do think that being truthful is necessary, but not necessarily good. And
the truth.
The truth won't set you free. I'm already finding myself going into a weird spiral where I might not really commit to what I say.
That's fine.
That's
Go
one
back on
thing.
it. Well, that's the thing about essays. You have to give yourself counterpoints, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, in my essay, I will quote a music lyric in the conclusion in order to sound relevant. That's what I did in all my essays in university.
Did you?
I quoted Dua Lipa in my final year exam. 2-1, baby. Thanks, Dua.
Let me pull up some definitions of truth and truthfulness, and you can tell me what you think. Truth, according to the Oxford Dictionary, is the quality or state of being true.
Bruh, that's the most annoying definition ever. That's like saying tea is made of tea bags which contain tea.
Okay, and then they also describe, the Oxford Dictionary describes true as in accordance with fact or reality, or
which I guess is kind of what
accurate or exact. So 2 definitions there. Number 1, in accordance with fact or reality, and then number 2, accurate or exact.
I think we've established that facts are not facts. And that's facts. Facts is yet another term that did not exist before Gen Z arrived and said facts. I think we've established that facts are easily twistable. They're very subject to data. They're very subject to these think tanks where people gather data, and it's all just that's bullshit.
It's hard because there's like it feels like we're defining truth is so hard. It feels like there are 2 types of truth. Like truth number 1, the sofa you're sitting on is blue.
Oh, we can't get into that.
But then again, like if you're a dog, dogs perceive.
If you're colourblind, that's not your truth, is it?
But does your personal truth supersede the objective material truth?
But what is the objective material truth? Because we never know. It's the classic. We never know if our blues are the same blue.
That you look at, like the like I might see the world differently to you, but but there are animals who like can perceive different wavelengths of color, which like melts my brain every time I think about it.
Noises that we can't hear, like the frequencies.
Yeah.
I am reminded of that Roald Dahl story, because Roald Dahl did not just write children's books, he also wrote adult fiction, which was quite horrifying, that we read in like year 8. And there was this one story about how this man invents a machine which can pick up on frequencies that humans can't hear. And he pulls out a flower from his garden, and the flower yelps. Just hears a little yelp. But then it goes further, because in the climax, in the conclusion, he cuts down a tree, and it's just like it's screaming, and it's horrifying. And that book, that short story really messed me up, because I just thought there are probably thousands, if not millions, of conversations that we can't hear, especially with the natural world. Yeah. I feel like I'm trying to be more connected with nature, but in general, as like a city cat, I'm not.
Well, I've shown you my garden, which is incredibly
your garden is just stupendous. I think the truth of the matter is that Cherry's garden is amazing, and that is the only thing we can fully know to be true.
My little micro carrots, because I haven't got a pot that's big enough for them.
Micro carrot feels like a slightly sexual pun, an innuendo, but
baby, why don't you come over here and see my micro carrot? You like dirt, let me show you my garden.
Yeah, I do think that truth is difficult because I think truth becomes very difficult when there's elements which force you to question your reality, which could be physical or mental or other question mark. But so if you lose a limb or if you're in physical pain, I think that reality becomes a lot harder to make sense of, and it's actually quite frightening that,
like ghost limbs and stuff like that.
Right, yeah, totally. And I think it is quite frightening that our grip on reality is actually a lot lighter than we think.
Yeah.
And it can be so easily changed, maybe even by an event, you know?
Yeah.
And obviously it could be something huge like death, or I say huge like death, but what's more mundane than
someone's life ending? Yeah.
Wrong choice of
Wrong
choice. Gonna get my head out the gutter.
Get it out the gutter.
We are all in the gutter, but some of us are looking up at the stars.
Oscar Wilde. I've seen that quote on Pinterest too, and I thought it was the deepest thing ever.
I wrote that quote down when I was like 14 and stuck it to my desk and felt like
I used it in my bullet journal.
Philosopher. I was like, I'm one of the philosopher kings that Aristotle or Plato wanted to rule the world.
I wrote that down in my bullet journal, and I was like, I have discovered the truth of the universe.
I think we're onto something really interesting, which is that all original thought is unoriginal, and therefore actually comforting, because maybe we're hitting at universal truths.
Fuck. Universal truths.
Maybe the fact that we all are effectively, if we're writing about anything or if we're creating something, they all come back to actually quite basic and yet, as I say, universal.
This idea of like the human condition.
And relatable truths. So
I agree.
So maybe rather than despairing because we're all trying to create something quote unquote original, we should be comforted by the fact that we are all grasping at the same questions in our own, idiosyncratic and unique ways, but we are all concerned with the same thing. So maybe by virtue of that, some people might express it better than others, but we're all on that same. I don't like to use the word journey because it makes it sound hippie. Path. We're all down the same lane. We're all in the same swimming
boulevard
lane.
of broken dreams.
We're all in the same. We're in the same boulevard of boulevard. We're all in the same boulevard of broken dreams. That sounds like a Hollywood movie from the 1950s.
It's a song.
Oh, I'm just uncultured.
It's like an emo song from the 2000s. You are uncultured.
I mean, I've really outed myself as just a huge weirdo, but that's okay. I'm speaking my truth and nobody can stop me. I think maybe that is what is annoying about the word truth, is that recently it just feels so co-opted by people who are like, speak your truth, girl. But I'm like, what is my truth?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a question mark. I don't know if anything I do is real. So why are you telling me to speak my truth when I don't know if I can even be honest with myself or truthful?
This is a big thing, like inner truth and being
honest. And
I'm
I'm a very
yourself.
truthful and open person in general. I pride myself on being too open. Is it called oversharing, or is it called a commitment to truth?
You're touching on something interesting here, which is this like concept of inner truth, and like I mean, why does truthfulness matter? I think there is something really important about, like, I don't know, it's so easy to live in denial.
I think this question of inner truth when people talk about, being truthful with yourself, and as you said, people can be in denial about their inner truths, but I often wonder whether the people who are in denial are in some ways living the truth, because I think of people who have big imaginations and big fantasy worlds, and who see the world in a way that might be perceived as odd or weird, but that's their own truth. And sometimes when they express it, it feels more truthful than the objective truth, which is just doorknobs and cereal and blue couches.
Yeah. I think you can be really imaginative and really live in your own world, but still have this idea of like, I think like that thing you're talking about like sort of men not being introspective. I think like being introspective with yourself and trying to learn about trying to be truthful with yourself is really important, and not living in, when I say living in denial, I don't mean like people who live in fantasy worlds. Listen, I fucking love fantasy worlds. I love daydreaming. I love D&D and TTRPGs. I love all of that, like pretending to be someone else. But I also think that's me living my truth. Living in fantasy worlds, it's me living my truth, because I'm exploring characters and myself through the realm of fantasy and imagination.
Yeah, you're right, but there's still that underlying level, which is somehow sticking to oneself. Yeah, you're right, that fantasy can be, or imagination can be a portal through which to express or like understand your own inner truth and self.
Yeah.
But like, is the self truthful? Are we just kidding ourselves that we're understanding ourselves? Because,
maybe
we might think, God, I've gone to therapy.
Yeah.
I've thought about myself. I've done the work. I'm always suspicious of that, because how do you know? How can you feel confident that then you really have been truthful with yourself? Although I, for one, would love a therapist, because I've only ever been to therapy once, which I got for free from uni, and I just told all my problems and didn't get any, and then the time was up. But I'm so curious about therapy, and would love, so if anyone's listening and wants to give me free therapy, then hit me up.
Babes, just start a podcast.
Babe,
honestly, it's much cheaper.
This
and
is
you just get to like vent at
therapy.
people for an hour and a half. It's great.
Can we do this every week at a scheduled time? I mean, I'm on a couch. It's already pretty Freudian, isn't it? Or Jungian. Because there are different types of therapists. I think I would kind of like a weird Jungian one. Even though they might tell me everything is like, they might just lead me down the weird path. But I think I'd be into that. God, it's just... What a
little rabbit hole we found ourselves down.
What a queer little rabbit hole, Alice. Apparently, the character of the Mad Hatter... Nope. The Queen of Hearts. Nope, I don't remember the end of the fact. So, cut that.
Okay.
Cut that shit.
Okay,
or keep it, because we're committed to truth.
Oh my God, speaking about truth and like hiding truths, these podcasts are very heavily edited. Not to the point where I I move the words around in sentences to make people say stuff like I hate women.
Joe Biden. It's like, those political videos. Do you remember after Nick Clegg, all that shit happened?
And they edit
into a song.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
That is exactly what I do.
I'm sorry.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I haven't thought about that in years.
The Liberal Democrats would like to say they're sorry.
Or like buttery biscuit base.
Yeah.
But talking about truth, these podcasts are quite heavily edited. Some of the episodes I will switch the order people say things because I go, oh,
fake,
because the way
Deep
sometimes
fake.
when you're going back over a conversation, humans are very naturally, we go off on tangents and like we say something and then we start
and
talking
someone
and we pick up
farts.
and we
like,
pick the thread back up over here, and then someone drops a big old
nasty fart.
big old nasty fart.
I guess that's the question: is would it be the truthful thing to do to include all the bumps and scatological, big word, that means to do with your ass and and shit and all that?
Oh, good.
Sorry, I'm literally speaking of, just about to burp, but I'm holding it in.
Okay, good.
But is it truthful to include things like pissing and pooing because you think that's important?
To what extent do we share with people?
Yeah,
or are you talking about like the podcast? It's like, should I just leave these conversations completely unedited?
But but does that make it any more truthful? Is truth,
I don't
is
think
truth
so.
including all the details, basically?
The devil's in the details.
The devil is in the details. So maybe, but I think that when people talk about truth, they're trying to come to something simplified and
objective and concrete.
Objective and concrete. And naturally, to do that, you can't say truth is whatever the Oxford Dictionary thing was, and this, and this, and it's also this, and it's also this, and it's also that fart you had on Wednesday at 3:05 p.m. Or is it? Or can we ever find what truth is because we're unable to put every single micro detail into our teeny brains?
Yeah. I mean, there's also a thing of like this idea of how much do you leave in? How much detail does something need to become truthful? If you know something is going to hurt someone if you tell it to them, should you tell them? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, if you, like, when is it necessary to lie? When is it more moral to lie than tell the truth? Or maybe not lie, or maybe just, like, omit information or not say.
I think what we like to do more as human beings, or certainly I don't think I lie a lot, but I think I do put off telling people things or procrastinate when I know that there's a difficult conversation to be had. If I feel a certain way, if there's something urgent that I haven't done that I need to tell someone about, then I'm less likely to want to tell them the truth. I'm much more likely to say, oh no, everything is fine, when there's actually something quite sort of burning in my mind that I think I do need to say to tell them the truth. And it often puts me in difficult situations when I've let a problem fester and I've avoided facing up to the truth or telling someone the truth. And I'm aware that those are moments when I think that truth really matters, because when you're not telling the truth or when you're not admitting to the truth, you're only delaying an inevitable facing up to the truth. That ultimately
and
the truth will come to you, even if you don't want to come to it. You cheating, lying scumbag husbands are gonna have to tell your wives.
We're really going after men in this episode, aren't we? All the men are gonna hate me.
All the men are gonna hate me except for that one reviewer who said, I really hope that you don't think I hate you because I actually really like you. And I was like, well, I'm now going to call the show All the Men Are Going to Hate Me.
Minus that one reviewer.
Minus reviewers who identify as men. Please love me.
Let's give some context. Maria just had a very wonderful show on a Camden People's Theatre.
I thank you.
Called All the Men Are Going to Hate Me.
Which maybe is slightly worth even discussing in a tiny bit of detail, because it was an extremely truthful show.
This was what I was about to ask. It's would you say autobiographical?
I would say I've come down to a really good way to describe it, which is autofiction, which I've read some books which would be called autofiction, and I was really inspired by them to write. Well, the show is effectively about my attempts to write the great female novel of the 21st century. And I actually am writing the great female novel of the 21st century.
And is it like the play itself? Or?
It covers a lot of the same territory, but it's less, there's less interpretive dance, sadly, because that's difficult to write.
Yeah.
However,
you can make it a flip book.
Oh my goodness. This is such good, with just like a little stick version of me in the corner, like doing a little dance. Wow, the forms are really endless with the novel. I don't think the limits of the novel have been pushed enough or explored. I think novels play it very safe. Okay, I'm not saying I'm Ulysses. I'm not saying I'm James Joyce, but I actually think I'm James Joyce. Although I've famously never gotten past page 16 of Ulysses because it's just so dense.
I haven't even attempted, I won't lie.
Sorry, Mr. Griffin, my English teacher who gave me that book.
Oh, that's quite sad, actually.
Yeah. But so autofiction, Why did you... So all the men are going to hate me. Going to
hate me. All of the men are going to hate me.
All the king's men.
It was, in your words, autofiction.
Yes.
Why did you feel compelled to write something that was... it was a very honest show, and this is something I think about a lot, because I write quite autobiographically often.
Yeah, I think most people do, even if they don't say that they do. Hot take.
I mean, as a writer, truth is a very interesting topic because, again, that universal truth that you're talking about, but starting at the basics, the character in All the Men Are Gonna Hate Me, is that character you, or is it a fictional version of you?
It is me, insofar as I think we all fictionalize ourselves to a certain extent.
Yeah.
A point I was trying to raise in the play, I don't know if I succeeded, was about our desire to, even every day, we tell stories. And I think especially when it comes to relationships or hookups or anything of that nature, we love to tell stories about it. We love to tell our friends, oh my God, guess what happened? Guess you'll never guess.
And we exaggerate.
And we dramatize. And I think that I've noticed that propensity in myself so much because I love a good story. And I know when I'm in a situation which might be unpleasant to be in, or awkward or weird, but I think of the story potential. I mean, there's the classic do it for the plot, but I think it is actually a deep point, which is that humans by nature love to express themselves in a way that is more dramatic than reality, because it's both fun and entertaining to others. And I think that entertaining other people is a very human thing to do. It's almost like we're gathered round the campfire and I'm saying, you'll never guess what stick I found, and we're cavemen, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And so I guess to answer it wankily, it's kind of a commentary on ourselves and our need to fictionalize our reality in order to make it not to make it necessarily palatable, but to make it something, to make sense of it, because the whole premise of the show is that each chapter was a new man that I'd slept with, and I guess part of me saw it as a kind of Dante-esque exploration through the circles of hell, where I think that when I finally get to the final circle, I'll have achieved some level of understanding.
Yeah.
And there'll be light, and I will know myself more. And I suppose the conclusion is that I kind of do and I don't.
Can you ever truly know yourself?
And I wanted to write a book where I would tie up all the knots and I would make sense of myself. And through sex with men, I would come to at least understand maybe what that even what place that even occupies in our lives, because I don't think we really have understood the effects of casual sex on our psyche, for instance. I don't think we really know what the current state of like romantic and social interactions, what effect that has had on us. And I think it's actually over discussed in a humorous way, but under discussed in a deep way,
in a truthful way,
in a truthful way almost. But I also love comedy, and I think comedy is a really important way to get at truths, because when you kind of show how ridiculous something is, or maybe when you over egg something, it exposes,
it gets to the crucial truth at the center of it.
Yeah, it's like, why are you laughing? Oh, maybe because you are worried, or maybe because you are emotionally affected by this.
Yeah.
But I also, kind of to return to your initial question, which was about truth in our writing.
Yeah, well, it's something I think about a lot, because I do poetry.
Yeah.
And something I think about a lot, and I perform
I do
about.
poetry.
I do poetry.
I do poetry. I do a few lines of poetry in the bathroom. That actually is us doing a few lines of poetry. Us just spitting bars in the bathroom. That would be an us thing to do, I feel.
That good poetry. But I do spoken word, and something that I think about a lot and sort of interrogate internally a lot is when I'm on stage performing poetry, am I being myself? Because, or am I putting on the character of Cherry Eccles, the spoken word poet? Because all of my poems, not all of them, the majority of my poems come from real life things and emotions and things that I'm thinking about. And for me, poetry is a way for me to explore truth, my truth and my world. But then I think when I perform them, a lot of the time I'm performing poems I wrote in a very different place in my life, or just sort of like emotionally I was writing them when I was feeling this. And now I'm getting up on stage and I'm performing to people. So am I putting on an act? Or am I mean, you know, Stanislavski talks a lot about like the truthful, is it Stanislavski who talks about like truth in acting?
Sounds like him.
I don't know. There's that school of thought in acting where it's like you need to be truthful and you need to be method acting. So am I putting on an act of Cherry the poet talking about sad things, or this thing, or this emotional thing that I went through 6 months ago?
What's funny about the Stanislavski thing is that his whole idea was that, you know, we needed to use our own personal experience and we bring it to a play to make it truthful. So if you are in a play, you know, mourning the death of somebody in the play world, you think of a time you've experienced death, passing away of somebody you know in your own life.
Yeah.
However, though this is what everybody thinks Stanislavski was his big idea was, he actually went back on it very late in his life. The Americans picked up on the method, and they said this is what Stanislavski stood for, and that is what we think of him, and that's the kind of
and now we
image.
have Jared Leto sending his classmates rats, dead rats in boxes. What a scummy man.
It's just everything that happens with that man confuses me. Anyway, but so then later on in his life, Stanislavski was like, nah, like actually that defeats the whole purpose of acting, because acting is to inhabit somebody else's life other than your own. So he was like, actually this whole method thing has gone way too far. It's not quite necessarily relevant to our discussion, but I think just going to clear up the truth about Stanislavski on the pod. I came here with one agenda, and it was to clear his name. Free Stanislavski from the chains of the method.
That's mad, because, oh my God, I remember talking about Stanislavski so much GCSE and A-level
Yeah,
drama.
but
The peak of the theatrical experience.
I mean, you're not, like, people aren't wrong to think that from Stanislavski, because he did stand for that, but he changed his mind, crucially, and I think that, if anything, it just teaches us that you could create a theory and you could be known for this theory, but you can change your mind, which maybe does come back to truth, which is that we never really know. We never really know, and we're constantly wondering and questioning.
And that can be quite a scary thing, isn't it?
Or liberating, perhaps. Both. I think it's double-edged.
I think in my opinion, you have to go, I don't know, and no matter how hard I stamp my feet and scream and wail about this, I cannot change it, so I'm going to accept that and be content. This idea of inner truth, in my opinion, you will torture yourself day and night trying to work out what the truth of the situation is, or trying to impose your truth upon the world and everyone around you. But I think happiness comes when you accept situations, and that doesn't mean you then become completely kind of, okay, I can't change anything, so I'm just going to sit here and do nothing. You accept
you become a bit of a Zen Buddhist about things.
I think it's the thing of, like, the truth of the world is like finding acceptance and being like, I will never truly know everything, but I'm never truly going to be able to completely change and overhaul the world, but I will do what I can.
Yeah.
And I will try and know as much as I can and do as much as I can. And at the end of the day, I'm going to accept that, I think the truth of the world is,
I think
X, Y, Z.
There are a lot of things in what you said. And I think even trying to tie truth and happiness together is a very sketchy game, because we're already talking about what is happiness, what does that mean? Is it a feeling? Is it also an objective thing? I would believe not. Is life's goal happiness? Not entirely sure. Maybe it's just because I'm a second generation immigrant, but my parents like to remind me that the goal of life is not happiness. That the goal of life is meaningfulness.
Oh, I like that.
Which I do like a lot.
I prefer that much more.
Because I think that happiness is fleeting, and I also think it's like, oh, are you content? Are you satisfied? Is it just a kind of a nice feeling? Is it pure happiness? Is it like, I've transcended beyond the ability to ever feel pain, and I'm just in pure happy land?
I feel like
meaningfulness is nice, because you understand that you're still subject to the like peaks and troughs of like life, but you're kind of motivated by, as you were just saying, kind of an acceptance of the big things you can't change, but also a drive that there are things that you can do, and it's not all hopeless, and there are kind of, I'm going to make a nice metaphor, you can tend to the garden of your life. You can choose this space which you cultivate, and it's limited, and it's not like the whole world, but it is a patch of the world. It's a patch of earth, and it has value, and it is real, and you can make it meaningful through your efforts and through your presence. God knows what that has to do with truth.
Well, it's your truth, right? It's that whole thing of like, once you talking about like happiness and breaking down like what is happy, like, oh my god, it's so fleeting. It's like, maybe the truth of the matter is once you start pursuing the truth of things, what is the true meaning of happiness? What is the true meaning of truth? The more you chase it, the more it kind of slips away and the more abstract it gets.
Yeah. I think that, and I'm now sort of regretting that I didn't pay more attention to my philosophy classes, because I could have done a really good answer, probably, based on sort of stuff that Plato and Aristotle and maybe even the pre-Socratics and who are the others? The post-Socratics. Thought about this, and I'm just trying to take my mind back.
Here's an ancient Greek philosophy quote for you. It's from Aristotle.
Go on.
Philosophy is the science which considers truth.
Oh, Aristotle, at it again with the bangers. Sure, Aristotle could write that, but could he write Lana Del Rae's lyrics? I think not.
And here's another one from Plato. Got more for you.
Who said that? Is it Lana who said hope is a dangerous thing for a woman like me to have?
I have no idea, babes. I'll be honest, I don't really listen to Lana Del Rae.
Friendship terminated.
Here's from Plato. And now we go over to our philosophy correspondent, Plato. The philosopher is in love with truth. That is, not with the changing world of sensation, which is the object of opinion, but with the unchanging reality, which is the object of knowledge. That's too many words.
It's so many words.
I started reading it, and then in my head I went, oh no.
That was me for every philosophy lesson I ever did.
So he talks about truth being the unchanging reality, which is the object of knowledge.
I think that is correct to bring knowledge into it, because maybe we've not talked about it enough, because knowledge, we said truth is power, like knowledge is power.
Sure.
And obviously our minds are limited, but I think that knowledge is kind of key with truth, because if your frame of reference for something is just, the CBBS, then you're probably not gonna have as much access to truth. Maybe
to get to the truth, do you need to pursue knowledge?
Yeah. It kind of goes back to what I said, that I think we're eternal students and that we should be learning all the time. Learn through suffering. That's what the ancient Greeks taught us.
I don't believe in that. I don't believe.
How does it go in Greek?
I don't believe you need to.
Mathe pathes.
Mathe pathes, and that means
maths comes from the word to struggle. No, actually, maybe it does. Who knows? No, because that's the word for knowledge. So it means knowledge through suffering.
I don't agree with that, but that's a different kind of worms altogether.
But I think suffering also includes experience.
Yeah.
And living. Do you think that when we die, we unlock all the truths or not?
Fuck me, I don't think about.
I don't really think about death that much.
I don't.
Compared to people, a lot of people.
When I was younger, I used to stay up all night just thinking about what came next. And this idea of death and an afterlife really tortured little 9-year-old chest.
That's what makes you a philosopher, though. That's what makes you a philosopher king.
But to be honest, I don't think about death because in my opinion, the truth of the matter is I will never know what happens after death. Unless God comes down and reveals it to me, I will never, ever know with absolute confidence what happens.
My dad likes to tell this funny, I guess, story, aphorism, which is that one time she said to just one of her friends, I was sitting on a bench, and she says something like, oh, but we're all going to die anyway. So like, what does it matter? And then her friend said, how do you know that? How do you know that you might be the one person who doesn't die?
Maybe your dad's immortal. Maybe your dad is the only immortal.
Why are we assuming that everyone's going to die out here? Because you never know. It might not happen.
Maybe.
I think that's like a deep thing, which sounds really
Assume
banal when you
nothing.
say it. but I like that, because you kind of go, what if? It's a bit of a cheeky take on life, which I think Socrates would have liked, because he was a famous cheeky boy.
This is what a Cambridge degree gets you. Your knowledge is this is the suffering. This is the knowledge you acquired through suffering. You know that Socrates is a cheeky boy, and Ulysses is too long.
What does a classical education from Cambridge get you? Depressing to think about, actually. Depressing to think about. Yeah. Just worms in your brain.
One may say.
I think as long as you're saying one before it will sound deep.
Exactly. One may say that an objective truth about the world is that everyone dies. But then, if you're a cheeky boy like Socrates, you could come along and be like, well, how do you know you're going to die? How do you know that what we consider death is actual death? What if there's something else?
Yeah. So, as Aristotle or Plato said, philosophy is the study and questioning of this quote-unquote unchanging reality.
Yeah.
It was something like that.
I've got it up in front of me. The philosopher is in love with truth, that is, not with the changing world of sensation, which is the object of opinion.
Yeah,
but with the unchanging reality, which is the object of knowledge.
I think since you've said it a second time, but with pauses, absorbed. It's really made sense.
Yeah. Sorry, that was my fault. Sorry, guys.
No. It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
We're getting
to the truth.
To the truth.
Well, that to me, what came to my head is like that thing you were talking about, where the idea of like we're all. No one ever truly has an original thought, and at the core of everything is like that truth of like what it is to be human, like the idea of like the human condition. I do agree with that. I do think everybody is chasing like what it. I think
it's a nice thing as well. It's like I think a lot of the time when you're realizing things about the world, it can often feel depressing or devastating, but there are some conclusions you can come to which actually make you think, no, like it's fine, it's all right, because we're only human, so we're only ever gonna have human thoughts, unless AI takes over.
Oh god,
I don't even like want to talk about AI because it's just so like it's there. I don't think it's that interesting, and I don't think it's that amazing. I don't think it's actually that life-changing as people are saying.
It's a whole other can of worms, but like I hate.
Although I do like hearing Grimes talk about AI because I think she's very clever.
I like the AI.
That's Bjork. Oh my god.
We're talking about this idea of like the objective, the universal truth.
But
the human condition.
But is the universal truth the same as the universal human truth? When we talk about truth, is this a fundamentally human thing, or does it exist beyond humans?
Are dogs having these conversations, do you think?
But is it only through human language that we can actually identify these things?
That's a really good point, actually. In the natural world where there isn't human language, do they have a concept of truth?
Or do they just do what is, as you say, natural? Do they just get on with it?
They follow their instincts.
They get on with it without all this navel gazing.
Are humans torturing themselves with
this
concept of truth?
We put the gaze in navel gazing.
Do you feel like you have anything else to say about truth? Is there anything else you want to... Is there anything else you want to explore?
Truth hurts, baby.
Truth. I mean, we kind of touched on it, but
it does.
Truth hurts.
But I think truth. But I think that ultimately, when people tell the truth, it's like, I think truth hurts other people when you say it, but I think it helps you, because if you don't tell the truth, that's hurting yourself too.
And I mean, I think also in the long run, everyone is better off once we with honesty, and maybe that is different from truth, as we were saying in the beginning.
Yeah. I just can't believe we started with the idea of this little boy eating an iPad. Like that was my way in. That was that was my paragraph 1. That's my opening.
That's your opener. Maria, I am going to say pencils down. That is time up. The exam is over.
Oh no, I ran out of time.
Can I get your thesis statement to the question, why does truthfulness matter?
Truthfulness matters because as human beings, we do actually possess at least an ability to move towards the truth. And it's important for us to go about our lives with a level of curiosity, but also acceptance, which I think working towards the truth brings. Truthfulness matters because that's what humans are actually kind of programmed to wonder about, because we have this language and we have this brain and these thoughts, and it is inevitable that we will wonder, and wonderment is an important feeling, and truthfulness matters because it's tending towards truth. Have we defined truth as understanding?
What is truth?
Baby.
Truth, there is nothing but objective truth, and we have defined truth how we want to define it, because that is our truth. And if anyone comes for me and tells me I've defined it wrong, then I'm going to say, well, how dare you? Because that's my truth, and I'm going to cancel you.
Truthfulness is cancel culture. Truthfulness is calling out the haters and writing a show about them and exposing everyone.
I'm living my truth.
My truth is a fart on a Thursday afternoon at 3 p.m. I think that's quite beautiful. That's gorgeous. Actually.
That is beautiful. I really like that.
Truthfulness is a fart on a Thursday afternoon.
Well, Maria, thank you very much for taking the All Souls Fellowship exam. We have carefully considered your application, and I am thrilled to congratulate you and welcome you into the hallowed halls of the alumni of the Exam Hall podcast. Wow. How does it feel?
It feels amazing that the turnaround was that quick for marking the paper.
Yeah,
I wish everyone sent out emails that quickly.
Now, if you are lucky enough to be an appointed fellow at All Souls, you are given funding for a 7-year period to fund any research project of your choice. So they give you board, somewhere to live, they give you a salary, you have access to study any subject of your choosing at Oxford. You're given contacts with leading professionals in your industry or discipline. So it's essentially 7 years to learn and discover with virtually no financial barriers, lots of open doors, lots of opportunities to achieve whatever you want to achieve.
God, that really is the dream, isn't it?
Right. What would you do with 7 years?
Well, I'm not a scientist, but if I were to choose the moral answer, in my opinion, an answer which would lead to hopefully the world being a better place, was I would spend 7 years looking into women's health, because it's extremely under-researched. And I feel like if I got all the big brains of biology in Oxford to actually take time to figure out why my periods are irregular. No, I'm joking. But to actually, spend time looking into that, then that would be amazing, because there's just so much that's unknown and it's so upsetting. And I just know that every other woman in this world has been probably misdiagnosed by a doctor.
Is it utilitarian?
That's the utilitarian, yeah. That's the greatest good.
Yeah, what a utilitarian answer.
But then if I wanted to just fuck around and pursue my niche and idiosyncratic interests, then I don't know, this isn't particularly niche or idiosyncratic, but I think I would just love to read like all the big Russian books, because I think then I would turn depressed, probably. I was going to say gain access to that truth we care so much about. But I also...
It's the Russians have it all figured out. Tolstoy. Why else is
they got it figured out?
So big?
The answer is vodka. But I just, I don't know, I feel like this is kind of a lame answer, but like I just want to read.
Honestly, yeah.
I just want to read.
I think
read anything and everything and write about it.
Just, yeah.
But maybe I would take the time to, God, I don't know why I was just like, I would write a dissertation on TikTok. I would spend 7 years figuring out why I'm addicted to TikTok. I think it's almost difficult to imagine working on one thing for 7 years, but I think definitely something to do with fiction, autofiction, women's place in fiction.
Yeah.
I just do gender studies. That's more of a project.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Well, I think it's one of those things where it's like 7 years just feels quite daunting to pick one thing. So I think what I would probably do is probably get there, then figure it out.
That's the best answer.
I think I would probably use it to just like have that freedom of being able to learn without restriction.
Yeah, I just think that I've never ever been happier, to quote Euphoria, than when I have been just following my intellectual instincts in that way. And it usually just results in a lot of tabs on my laptop.
Yeah. God, don't let me look at this shit.
No, I think I have the most number of tabs ever open at one time. It's so much that it like crashes my computer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that I'd love to actually merge. I think what for me, I would need to be both writing creatively and researching, because I think I realised that I struggled at uni when all the work was just write an essay, and I naturally just wanted to write a poem on something instead, or create something that could be performed. So I think I would like to be an interdisciplinary intellectual.
Nice.
As wanky as that sounds.
You've kind of touched on this already, but is there anything that like you feel like was kind of missing from your education, or is there anything that was like that 7 years would fix in your past education, like any barriers or like any gaps that you're like, God, 7 years with all this sort of financial aid and all this contacts and time, like, is there anything that you feel like was missing? What kind of barriers do you feel like you faced in education?
I mean, I think my education on paper was good. It was fine. And even I'm just thinking about my school, like it was a well-performing school, but I think that I consistently felt that I was not being taught enough. I consistently felt like, why were we learning about the Tudors for the 5th time in a row when we haven't even read Chaucer? I don't know. I think I'm actually really against the British school system, because I think that this whole GCSEs, A-levels thing kills academic interest, and I think it just turns kids into exam machines, and I became a very good exam machine, and then afterwards felt like I actually could only do that, and that I was good at working under pressure and cramming things into my brain. But God, that, like, it almost, I think, killed my academic interest. And I realised that as soon as I was out of full-time education, that's when I remember very clearly lying on my bed maybe like a month after graduating and going, oh my God, I'm so excited to like just learn things for myself, and I'm so excited to read now that I'm away from that oppressive, in my opinion, academic environment.
Was that after A-levels or after
That was after uni, because it felt just like one long exam machine.
Well, that's crazy, because then what is the point of higher education and further education? I guess some people would be like, well, you're getting a qualification, and you need it to be able to get those high powered jobs. But then But
then that's just like, okay, so I could become a part of the capitalist system.
It's just like another box to check. Whereas I would go, what is the point of a university education if not to be able to satisfy your urge to learn? Or what is it if not an opportunity to learn and develop?
I think you do learn, but I think you always learn in the ways that you don't realise. You probably learn more about how to deal with people than Plato.
Yeah.
And when I graduated, on the day of my graduation, my mum said to me, Maria, I'm so proud of you. You didn't drop out, you didn't get pregnant, and you didn't get into drugs. Well, not really. And then I remember at first going, what? That was the most kind of, what? But then I actually thought, you know what? What she's saying in her own lovely way is you did it. You survived and you got through. And that's kind of what it is. It's, I suppose, persisting through the experience, because good and bad, it teaches you about managing your life. It's the first time that you're really kind of out in the world, quote unquote. Not really, you're in a bubble, but you're out in the world with other people. And it's about, I think what's probably the most important thing about university is just learning how to be a person who can make pasta and interact with other people, and who can, find connections with people from different backgrounds and stuff, and you can hold your own. I honestly felt like most of the struggle in uni was just keeping it together. And that is, it's not nothing.
Is there anything, if you went to All Souls and had this 7 years, is there anything you would do differently than your first time round?
I think it would be so much better this time around. I think when you're literally 18 or 19 and you go to uni, you're just an insecure little bean, and it's much more important that you go to a lecture with someone than that you actually learn. And I think
what the lecture is.
Yeah, and I just think that I would go there with slightly more skill at maybe balancing my life and also realizing that what's really important are the conversations you have, because you can write an essay anytime.
Yeah.
But you can't have that really meaningful chat with someone at 3 a.m. You can't have that. You learn so much just from talking to people and connecting with others, and it can be academically, but it also can be emotionally, or it could be having a podcast. If I went to All Souls, I would start up a podcast, it would be like Kunk, Philomena Kunk.
Oh yeah,
on Earth, and I would just interview.
That would be your
the biggest
7-year
brains
project.
Yeah. Just one
Trapping the biggest and smartest people you can find.
I would
and
pull a
asking them
Borat.
silly questions.
Yeah, I would just LARP. For 7 years.
For 7 years.
I would develop lots of different alter egos and exercise them on people and start a hit TV show.
Oh, well, Maria, I am very glad.
And I'd fuck a lot.
Well, Maria, I'm very glad. Add a few more chapters into your book, eh?
Yeah.
I'm very glad that out of everyone you could be talking to today, you've come and talked to me in my living room on my blue sofa.
I've loved being here.
Oh, I've loved having you here.
Something about having a conversation in a mic with headphones.
It makes you feel important.
Makes everything feel really important.
Yeah, it does. Before we say goodbye and bid you adieu on your philosophical journey to the universal human truth at the centre of everything, is there anything you'd like to shout out, promote?
Yeah, I would like to. I possibly have too many things to promote.
Do it all.
But, whoa, okay, where do I start? Firstly, I'm going to the Edinburgh Fringe this year.
Woo, 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 woo.
Ow, what a crazy, crazy idea that is. And I'm going to be joining all the other art wankers in August in Edinburgh, and I'm going to be performing my own one-woman show called My Dad Wears a Dress, and it's about my experience of growing up with a transgender dad, a trans female parent, if you will. And it's about seeing that topic, quote unquote, through a child's eyes, and about basically celebrating non-heteronormative families and showing how easy it is for us to fear the truth and fear showing other people the truth about ourselves, but that actually it does set you free and you realise you have more in common with other people than you think. So that's on My Dad Wears a Dress, and it's on at Underbelly for the whole month at 11:25 a.m. So if you want a good start to your morning. I'm also hopefully one day will publish my novel, All the Men Are Going to Hate Me. So if that happens, look out.
Where could they find updates about that?
Currently on my laptop, hopefully one day Waterstones, but you can also follow me on Instagram at Maria Telnikoff 21, or you can follow All the Men Are Gonna Hate Me on Instagram. Yeah, some dope pictures coming soon of me licking ketchup bottles. And I also do an alternative comedy night, which is starting for the first time literally tomorrow. So it'll probably be too late by the time this comes out.
Are there going to be more?
But it's going to become a regular thing.
Amazing.
It's called Soft Play Area. And I am hosting that with my best friend, Vidya. And we're going to have an amazing lineup of stand-up comedians, clowns, musical comedy people. But the idea behind it is that everyone tries out something that would make their inner child giggle. And it's meant to be a soft play area environment, which means supportive, and it's soft if you fall.
No hard edges, no corners.
This is not a hard work location. This is a soft play area.
Oh, amazing.
I believe that's it. But I also am hopefully going to try and put my poems out there, as I have a first book of around 30 poems called Songs of Inexperience.
Lovely.
Which I currently have one whole copy of because I self-published it. Fuck yeah.
Maria, thank you very, very much for being here today. I shall now release you into the world with this hopefully newfound life-changing conversation that we have had about truth.
And a new desire to start up a podcast.
Gorgeous.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of The Exam Hall. If you're interested in getting updates from us, you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at The Exam Hall Pod. If you'd like to be a guest on a future episode, please get in contact. You can click the link in the description, which will take you to an expression of interest form, or you can follow us on social media at The Exam Hall Pod and get in contact through there on Instagram and Twitter. And while you're there, scrolling through the sea of information that is the World Wide Web, and you think, I want to know what's going on with Cherry, well, then you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Cherry the Eckle, cherry like the fruit, the like the word the, and Eckle, not like Eccles Cakes, but Eckel. And you can also find me, Cherry Eckle, on YouTube. I want to give a very, very big shout out and thank you to Boundless Theatre, whose support has made this podcast possible. And I want to give a very, very big shout out and thank you to you for listening. I hope wherever you are, whoever you are, whatever you're doing, you're having a lovely day. And I will see you next time. Laters!